Hello, welcome. In this lecture, let us understand about transaction controller in JMeter. The purpose of the transaction controller is to group the requests to measure the overall time for a transaction. It means you can group multiple samplers and calculate the combined time. The transaction controller will give a combined time. The transaction controller will provide a overall, that is combined time for multiple samplers in the single transaction. For example, suppose you want to measure the time for entire login process, entering a credentials, clicking on login button and then receiving the response. If we want to get the combined time for multiple samplers for a same transaction, then we can use the transaction controller. Now let me open the JMeter and let us practically understand how to use the transaction controller. sh space jmeter.sh. So now that this test plan is opened, now I will add the thread group to the test plan and I will add the transaction controller as well. And inside this transaction controller, I will add few samplers. HTTP request 1, let us say, then HTTP request 2 and request 3. For example, request 1, I will say, we can assume that it's an open login page, and here request 2, let us assume that enter login credentials, and third one is click on login button. Assume that these are the three different samplers or requests we need to send to complete the login transaction. If we add these requests in the same transaction, it will provide a combined time for all these three requests. Means these are the transaction for the login process. Let us say login transaction. We need to send a 3 requests. Assume that we need to send a 3 requests to complete the login process. But I want to get the overall, the combined time of all these 3 requests. Then we can put it under a transaction controller. It will give a combined time. Now let me add the listener here. I will add the aggregate report, and I will also add the summary report, right? Here I will add some website. Let us say https www.blazedemo.com, right? I will add some sample website name here. Okay, now let me save this test plan transaction controller. Now let me run this test and verify how the results will be displayed. Let us run this. Now you can see here three requests, HTTP requests are sent for login process. Now the transaction controller here is providing the sum of all these three average response times. It means it is providing a combined value of the transaction. The transaction controller is providing a combined value, the sum of three different requests, right? In this way, what we can do is all the related requests for this transaction you can place under this transaction controller, so that it will give a combined result. Here you can see this line, it is a sum of all three different requests, right? For all the different parameters, it is providing a controller level result as well. So by using a transaction controller, you can measure the time taken for particular transaction. In this case, it is a login transaction that we have taken as an example, right? For these requests, I have just placed some URL, but in your test, while you are testing, you can place a proper login screen based on your application. You can combine the transaction, you can place a proper login screen. You can also provide the login credentials here. in the body if it is a post request, right? That one you can adjust based on your requirement, but concept here is different requests related to same transaction you can place under this transaction controller, and it will provide the overall value or a combined value for these different requests, so that you can easily calculate the time required for this particular transaction, right? Here also you can see it is providing a transaction controller level result, right? Here also you can see transaction controller level result. In this way, transaction controller is helpful in providing the overall time for a transaction when the transaction has multiple requests. Thank you for watching.